Hey class, it's Bob again. We're going to talk about something called a reorder point or an ROP. Reorder point or ROP. Now, in the last video we talked about an EOQ, an economic order quantity. So we talked about the amount to order. How much are we going to order in order to minimize the sum of holding costs and ordering costs. In this quick video I'm going to talk about something called a reorder point. First thing to know, the reorder point is not a point in time. The reorder point is not a point in time. The reorder point is an inventory level that triggers an order. So let's say I've got a stack of books. So I'm selling textbooks, okay? So here's my stack of books. I'm not an artist, people. Okay, so this is my stack of books on the shelf. And as soon as my inventory hits a certain number, then I place an order. Okay? So let's say my reorder point with respect to these books equals 3 books. Okay, so what that means is that I'm selling books, so the books are going away. I sold one, sold another, sold another. At this point, it looks like I'm down to 5 books. Sold another, down to 4 books. I'm going to sell one more book. Okay, I'm down to 3 books. This inventory level right now would trigger an order. So an order would automatically be placed. Okay, so what happens now, the order's en route. I've ordered the books for my inventory. I'm replenishing my bookshelf for my bookstore, and I'm waiting for those books to show up. Okay, this waiting time, this period between when I order the books and when the books arrive is called lead time. Okay, lead time. Abbreviate that LT. And lead time is the period of time, and you know what lead time is, you've heard this, the period of time between when I order something and when it arrives. Okay, lead time, the period of time between when I order and when it arrives. Now, it's during lead time that I could experience a stock out. Okay, here's another point I want you to grab a hold of. It is only during lead time that I might experience what's called a stock out, when I run out of products. Not a good thing. That means I'm missing out. I'm missing out on sales. I'm annoying customers. You've all gone to the store to pick up toothpaste. They don't have your brand. They're out. And it's irritating. Do that enough, you lose your customer forever. Okay, so in this scenario, we had a reorder point, that inventory level that triggers an order. We chose a reorder point of 3. That means we're going to let the pile of books get down to 3 before we place that order. And what that means is that 3 needs to be enough books to cover demand during our lead time. It's only during lead time that we might experience a stock out. This right here should make sense to you because before the lead time starts, we've got more than the reorder point. We've got plenty of inventory. And after lead time ends, we've been restocked. The lead time, the order shows up. So before lead time, there's plenty of inventory because lead time hasn't been triggered yet. The order hasn't been triggered yet. After the order arrives, we've got plenty of inventory because we just got an order. So it's only during the lead time that I could experience a stock out. So what happens is I hit that 3 books are laying there, and I'm waiting for the order of books to come in. And somebody comes in, they buy another book, and I'm down to 2. I'm still waiting on those books to come in, and I sell another one, and I'm down to 1 book, and then the order arrives, hopefully. Okay, what else could happen? We could sell all the books, and then we have a stock out. So this reorder point, in this example is 3, needs to be associated with the number of products I typically sell during a typical lead time. Okay, so if I typically sell 3 books while I'm waiting on an order, then 3 might not be a bad reorder point. If I typically sell 50 books during a lead time, then the reorder point needs to be something closer to 50, and then it needs to actually be above 50 to account for fluctuations in lead time demand. So I just used a phrase called lead time demand, okay, and let's talk about that. Lead time demand. And that's a real tough one. It's that demand, the demand experienced during lead time. So what I could do is I could go back historically. I could look at every time I placed an order for a particular product, I could look at how much of that product was sold while I was waiting on that product's order. And that would be lead time demand. And what I would find is lead time demand isn't always the same. Okay? Lead time demand isn't always the same. Sometimes it takes the manufacturer 3 days to get it to me. Sometimes it takes them 3 weeks to get it to me. Sometimes demand is nothing. Sometimes demand is crazy. So lead time demand is something that varies. And lead time demand is going to be expressed as an average, and it'll have a standard deviation. So when something varies, we can express it. We look at what's the average lead time demand, and then what is some measure of the variance there? What is the standard deviation of lead time demand? So I'll introduce a couple of new terms, LTD with a bar over it, meaning the mean of lead time demand, and sigma LTD, which is the standard deviation of lead time demand. So let's keep these two here. Let's deal with those. Okay, I'm going to erase all this. So rewind if you didn't get all that on your page. So here's the thing while I'm erasing. The higher lead time demand is, the higher the reorder point needs to be, and that should be intuitive. If on average I sell 100 products of something while I'm waiting on an order to arrive, then my reorder point needs to be considerably higher than if I only sell 5 items while I'm waiting on an order to arrive. Okay? So we can actually calculate an appropriate reorder point based on lead time demand and the standard deviation of lead time demand. Okay, and that's what I want to do now. So let's say I have a product, and there's this normal distribution again that you all are going to grow to love. And let's say on average I sell 100 units of that product while I'm waiting on that product to arrive. So let's say that my stack of books, okay, here, let's just measure the stack, and like right here is 100 books. So pretend there's this big stack of books right here, okay, and right here's 100. So I've got about 130 books there, and I'm selling the books, and the inventory hits 100, okay, and now I'm going to sell the books, and hopefully by the time that order arrives, I will not have run out of goods, will not have run out of books. Now, if I actually use an ROP equal to the average lead time demand, that produces what's called a stockout risk, the probability of running out of books of, fill in the blank here, pause the video, see if you can figure this out. If I order, let's write it down, if ROP equals the average lead time demand, then my stockout risk equals what? Pause the video, see if you know the answer. Okay, welcome back. You didn't pause the video, did you? I knew it. Okay, your stockout risk equals 50%, okay? Because this is an average. This is an average. Lead time demand is an average, meaning half the time it's going to be higher than that, half the time it's going to be lower than that. So what we've done is we've accounted for all of these particular scenarios. if my reorder point is 100, then I've accounted for all of these scenarios when demand was only 90 or demand was 80 or 70 or whatever. We have not accounted for those scenarios where lead time demand is greater than 100. So we're only accounting for 100, or rather half of the possibilities with respect to what demand I could experience during lead time. Okay. Now, the appropriate reorder point is going to be dependent upon something called a service level. The service level is the opposite of a stockout risk. The service level is the probability that I do not run out of products. Okay, so my service level is the probability of not running out of inventory. Okay, the probability of not running out. So if safety stock or if stockout risk is 10%, that means my service level is 90%. If stockout risk is 50%, then service level is 50%. So what we have to do is we have to decide on an appropriate service level. And typically we want that to be high. We don't want to run out of stuff. So let's say I decide I want a 99% service level. What that means, if I want a 99% service level, is that means I want to account for 99% of the scenarios. I want to account for 99% of what could possibly happen. And the reorder point associated with that is right here. Okay? This point right here. So not just 100, but something much greater than 100 to account for the reorder point. Now, if you look in your table A in your textbook, you'll find the normal distribution curve. And the area under the curve, if the area under the curve is 99%, then that has a distance in terms of standard deviations from here to here is 2.33 standard deviations. We call that a z-score. So if our service level is 99%, we say that z must be equal to 2.33. Now you might be looking at your table and you might say, well, when I go to 2.33, I come down to the row heading of 2.3, I go over to the column heading of 0.03, and it says 0.4901. Well, if that's confusing you, it's because your table looks like this. Your legend for your table looks like this, and it's not accounting for this 50% on the other side. Okay? So what we're saying is, in order to account for 99% of what might happen, we need to come over from the mean 2.33 standard deviations. Well, we haven't yet discussed what one standard deviation is. And let's say in our example, lead time demand, average lead time demand, is 100, and let's say that the standard deviation of lead time demand equals 10. Okay? What that would mean is if I go over 2 1/3 standard deviations, I'm going over 23.3 units. 10 times 2.33. So that this ROP would equal 123.3 units. So what would happen is I would use a reorder point of 123. And what that means is 99% of the time, I would have accounted for what could happen. 99% of the time I would not run out of product. Okay? That's the meaning of that. So if we chose a different service level, like 95%, I would find the z-score associated with that, and I would find from that the appropriate reorder point from there. Okay? So that's the meaning of reorder point. We have to take into account the variance, the standard deviation of my lead time demand. Of course, if lead time demand has greater variance, we need a much greater reorder point. If this had a variance of 100, then of course this would be much higher. Okay?